Hey, it's Sue Greenwald here with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr with the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Deanna.
Hey, how's it going today?
Doing good, doing good. So today we're just going to do some random follow-up questions and little things to talk about. Okay, so
Mm.
I've been collecting a lot of questions from our previous videos, and so I'm just going to do it all in one video. And various random questions. So one question, are panda bears fake? Because none of us have ever seen them in the wild. Interesting question.
It is interesting because now when I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen them in the wild. They're always in
Yeah,
captivity.
yeah.
So are they fake? Yes, they are. They're man-made.
Because we've been told that they have trouble breeding and that they hardly ever have babies.
Yeah, that would see, I haven't heard that. We just think pandas are cute.
So basically they're
So that would
created.
make sense. If they have a hard time breeding, it's because it's man-made. Um, yeah, because usually when we talk about species that are natural, they don't tend to have a hard time breeding. It's just natural. And then usually you have mass population of them at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
And they are usually somewhere in the wild. Like you could go out and stumble upon one. But that is a good question because I never even thought that, hey, I haven't seen one in the wild. I mean, not that I'm going and looking for them, but you never see a video of like, hey, I just saw this panda out on my nature walk.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's
So
interesting.
who were they created by? Were they created by like our humans, ETs, like
Humans. So a lot of they're not the only things that have been created by people. So the big one, like just, in my area alone is insects. So we have the love bug completely created by people. So there are different species that have been completely created by people. I just never thought about the panda being one of them.
wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, somebody had sent me various pictures of pink dolphins. All right. And you might have seen them. So I wrote back, I think pink dolphins are from a river in Amazon, but can you tell us more about the pink dolphins?
Yeah, so they're from a specific place. There's not that many of them, and it's pretty much just a discoloration. Um, the best way is kind of like the flamingo. Like they ate something with that high coloration in
Oh,
it.
okay. Yeah.
So they take on that color.
Yeah.
So they're not technically born pink. They're pretty much born without pigments, but the pink comes through by what they're eating.
Right.
So it is from the system that they've been living in.
Okay, interesting. Because I
Mhm.
think for flamingos, it's like the iodine or something in the shellfish that they eat or the shrimp or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. And so it might be something similar like that with dolphins in their river
Hmm.
or wherever they are.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So, question, who are the watchers? So are they malevolent or what?
Oh, that's a good question. The Watchers, trying to figure out the best way to put it. They're not specifically malevolent, but they're kind of they're just a base, like a baseline. They have just a job they're doing. Um, they want to keep it on a specific playing field. They do have specific things that they want to happen. Um, how else to put this? They want it to be a certain way. They're going to make sure it gets accomplished, but it's not always in a malevolent way that they're doing it. They're just trying to make it go according to their plan. So at the end of the day, this kind of sound really malevolent. um, I don't know how else to put this. They're going to make sure it happens. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen according to plan, they're going to make sure it gets done
So
in one way or another.
they have a mission.
Mhm.
which is blank. And they will pretty much do everything they can to ensure that mission is accomplished. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So that could lead to manipulation or whatever. So
Mhm.
where are they from? Are they from another planet?
Yeah, so it's multiple planets that they're from.
Yeah.
And they are pretty high up. They are not full on source, but they are pretty high up. Um, they have access to everything that they need. They have access to manipulation, to people to help them get what they need done. So they have a lot of power.
It kind of feels like a timekeeper or something like,
Yeah, that's what you would call them is because I think we talked about timekeepers with the Sandman video
yeah,
we did.
yeah.
So the Watchers are pretty much what you most people consider the timekeepers.
Okay, okay,
Um, so they do have more manipulation and power and access. But like I said, they want to make sure certain things stay on the specific timeline. The best way for somebody to think of that is from the Loki show, where towards that end of the first series or whatever, they go in and there's this room where they are controlling time and how time orients. And if you go off track, what are they going to do to you to make sure it stays on track?
right, right,
So that's pretty much what it is. They're making sure everything goes to an extent. Now they do have jobs they're doing. They are not the highest being, so they still have people they have to come
report,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, a watcher is more of a job title than a race or species.
Yes.
Okay, and so they're here to make sure certain things happen, and we're, now, are they only on Earth or watching Earth, or are they watching all the planets and every whatever in the solar system slash universe?
They're mostly Earth. There's more sections of timekeepers. But like I said, when we switch on to a singular timeline, that's going to change. So right now we're actually shrinking down, and like I said in the other video, we're seeing um our realms kind of merge together,
Right,
and this is where that timeline is kind of being forced into each other. So at a certain point, there really won't be any time watchers because or watchers, whatever you want to call them, um, because there is one timeline.
all right. That's interesting. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like such an interesting and complex question. I almost don't even know what to ask, you know?
It's very complex because you're getting into like the top tier.
Yeah,
Um, and then when we talk about time, that's where a lot of people get lost because we already have a hard time understanding time
yeah,
because technically it's completely made up. Um, so for our standpoint as humans, time moves in a singular direction.
right.
Whereas time, like I said, it's made up. It can go in any direction we choose. We just move in direction.
It's inconceivable to understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's where it's very hard to comprehend. And then you're talking about we're on one timeline. So then you add in other timelines and then you add in,
yeah,
different versions of yourself. So it's very complex.
very complex. Yeah. All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Of course.
Do fairies hibernate? So we're gonna call them regular fairies. Do they hibernate in the winter or in the snow?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay,
So they're snow fairies. They're more winter fairies, if you want to call them that. Um, Now, obviously, not every place has the cold, so they're going to stay around the same. But for ones that are specific to a certain temperature and that kind of thing, they're going to not necessarily hibernate, but they're going to be more indoors, keeping warm and keeping safe because if they go out, they won't really survive because they're not meant for that cold.
okay, okay.
Mhm.
So really, when the spring awakens, the fairies, these fairy outdoor fairies, they
Yeah,
awaken in along with the elementals and all that. They
yeah.
create the season of spring. the
Yeah.
leaves and all that coming up, the animals coming out of hibernation.
So a great way to think about it is the birds. So the birds are kind of like the awakening
Yeah,
for the spring fairies
yeah,
because that's when the winter is pretty much past. Because you do have that, that inner time where it's not necessarily winter, but you don't have the buds on the trees yet. It's kind of like
yeah,
warming up, but not there yet. So
yeah.
once you hear the birds chirping, that's when the fairies are coming out,
Okay,
like the spring fairies.
okay, good, interesting stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now, do these fairies that are hibernating, do they wear like a different outfit? Like,
Yeah, they'll try to stay warm. So they'll layer up, kind of like what we do. I mean,
yeah,
they're just smaller beings. Um, and they've created systems so they don't really have to come outside to get food and that kind of thing. They're able to work with nature as is, so they have everything that they need.
okay, cool, so interesting. Okay, question. Are the Transformers real?
Yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
all right.
So we don't, I mean, we're not going to see the giant robot coming through. Um, we do have transformers. There are some here on the planet. They're a little bit smaller and they do keep hidden, kind of like the later one where they're kind of like on an inner earth type thing where they're still here but they're hidden so that way they can be safe. We do have more of the negative transformers out and about. um which movie was that, like the third one, where you see these elite car dealers and it turns out the cars were actually the bad guys and they've been working with the families for years. So we do definitely have Transformers on Earth.
So some of the cars are beings. Is that what you're saying?
hmm We have that, but they're also using the technology to enhance our technology now. I mean, it's complete technology. I mean, you're taking a car form, transforming it into a being. They're different on so many levels. So they're taking base knowledge of these transformers and using it to better their work.
Wow. Okay. Not even sure what to ask about these guys, you know? So are they
Yeah.
mechanical beings that have like an AI type of a consciousness or is there any biological part of their being?
So it's basically a machine with a soul. So they're not technically AI. It's not programmed. It is a soul. It is a thought. Um, but instead of human form, it's a mechanical form. So obviously they're not from here. Um, what else? That's pretty much it. I mean, it depicts them pretty well in the movie. They can transform. They are these mechanical beings. They are not AI like what we have right now,
Okay.
where it's been programmed by a human.
So like we have a soul or a consciousness that can go into any, different bodies,
Yeah.
right? They have the same kind of a soul. It just isn't a mechanical body.
Yes. And that's where, like in the movie, they talk about their allspark and it's pretty much their heart.
Their soul,
So
yeah.
it's just a little bit different than
Yeah.
what we perceive. And then we talk about the good, the negative. Same thing as every society. You have the good guys, the bad guys. Just theirs are a little more intense because
Yeah.
they're these massive beings, but they do have knowledge of technology and they know how to use it and to manipulate. So even in the movies, they depict it as manipulation, and that is definitely what they do when they're on the darker side.
Okay. Very interesting, huh?
Mhm.
And are obviously they're from another planet, but how many would you say are here on Earth? A
Good
lot.
guys, good guys. Well, we don't really have that many.
Okay.
Um, Probably about 10.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, it's not a lot because you have to consider they've been taken out.
Yeah, okay.
And then the bad guys a little bit more.
Okay.
There really isn't a lot. It's not like we're completely overtaken. Like I said, it's more of they wanted technology for a specific reason. So they kept what they needed.
So interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Next question. How were the domes above our district made? Like they were put here, Smarty says 2 billion years ago by the Martians. So there's a big dome over our area of Earth. And Smarty says it's like kind of like a glass or a clear material, but it's got booby traps in between the layers. So it's a very complex thing to break through. But how was that put up?
Well, they had better technology than us.
Technology.
They were able to advance. A great way to think about it is Chicken Little. I mean, do you remember how the sky was falling? It was these, hexagon looking plates that were clear and they could, transform to what they needed. So that's pretty much it. And then they worked together. So to get them up, I mean, they could easily manipulate the technology to go up by themselves. And then because of the technology and the shape, it's easy to keep adding to it and to change the shape of it.
And because it's such a massive area, that's how it's done. It couldn't be like we're like a lot of us were probably thinking one piece. It was like a molded piece of glass or whatever.
You
But you're
know, it's
saying,
it's many, many pieces put together.
all right, all right. And how do we get blue for the sky? What's that come from?
You know, I don't know.
Is it a
We're
reflection?
it's they don't want to say so
They
it
don't
is
want
a
to say.
choice. It's a choice. It's not that it's blue, it's somebody just picked it. It's
Oh,
somebody just picked it. So it's not like that's the natural look of the sky. I mean, you get when the sky changes colors when the sun sets, you get all these beautiful colors. Somebody just picked, hey, it's gonna be blue during the day because it's
wow.
brighter. Um,
Interesting.
and so it was more of a good way to think of it is like a branding. Okay, when it's light out, it's blue. When it's gonna rain, it's gonna get gray. So you always have blue incorporated in some way, shape, or form.
Interesting. Super interesting.